One of the great things about Avatar was that the minutiae of the fantasy world never overshadowed the characters. I mean, that's one of the reasons a lot of fantasy stories fail. Because if we don't care about the people who inhabit this magical world, then what happens to them and in the world doesn't really matter. Deco and company pretty much avoid this trap in Avatar. I mean, bending is pretty neat, but the novelty of that would have worn off fast if we didn't care who was doing the bending and why. But not only did we care, the writers even took it a step further. They used Aang's struggle to master all the elements to get certain themes across. For example, they illustrated how the learning process works, and how even a prodigy like Aang had to be hardworking and dedicated before he could master anything. They even used bending as an extension of character. I mean, how someone bent could reveal who they were as a person. In Book 2, Zuko couldn't generate lightning without it backfiring on him. It was a sign that he was still in conflict with himself, and hadn't achieved inner balance yet. So then, later on in Book 3, when he's able to stop lightning and redirect it at his father, it's awesome! Because it reveals like how much he's grown as a person, and how he knows who he is now, and what he has to do. This is character development, people! There's nothing like that in Korra. Now bending is just a casual commodity, with none of the symbolism that made it so potent in Avatar. I honestly couldn't tell you how one person's bending reflected their character. Well, except in the hierarchical sense, but we'll get to that later. I mean, sure, I guess Korra's preference for firebending is a little revealing, but wasn't her personality supposed to be the opposite of Aang's?
Korra, right off the bat, the total opposite. At 4 years old, she could already bend fire, earth, and water.
Yeah, we wanted her to not be the reluctant hero like Aang was, and she's ready to go out there and start being the Avatar, even when she's 4 years old.
How come her priority element wasn't Earth? I mean, that is Air's natural opposite, and I mean, that would, I don't know, explain her airbending block? Come on, guys, were you even trying?
And what about lightning bending? I mean, that used to be scary. That used to be a skill so dangerous that if you did it wrong, you could kill yourself. Now we literally just see rows of working class benders just generating lightning like it was nothing. Now, maybe this is just me, but would you really be able to trust the average person with this kind of power? I mean, it's not like the cops are even a threat to these guys, so when you think about it, they could just electrocute their metal-wearing asses to a crisp. That's probably why these cops showed up so late on the scene. They didn't want to get on until after Korra took care of these guys first. What a bunch of I mean, outside of obvious workplace environments like this one, you think that lightning bending would be just as illegal as blood bending is. Speaking of which, they even managed to up blood bending. I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, come on! The power to manipulate someone like a puppet using their blood is the...
Oh god. Oh, I'm getting nauseous just thinking about that.
Ugh, I don't even want to imagine how painful that would be. I mean, it's a good thing it can only happen during a full moon, because otherwise... Okay, was this script written by a child? Guys, just because this is fantasy doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. You can't just change the rules of your universe because you feel like it, especially not without a good explanation.
In my years, I have encountered people born with rare and unique bending abilities. I once bested a man with my trusty boomerang who was able to firebend with his mind. Why, even metal bending was considered impossible for all of...
Honestly, this was the biggest cheat in the entire series. Especially since they've reduced the majestic terror of bloodbending to a B-movie scare. God. Also, how come bloodbending is against the law? I mean, yeah, it's scary, but so is lightning bending, and they found a use for that. Wouldn't being able to monitor someone's blood flow lead to some interesting medical advances in this universe? No? That's just me? Okay. Okay, whatever. You know, it's a little strange that bending has lost so much of its appeal, especially since the entire premise of the show revolves around the idea that losing your bending is worse than death.
Wait, please don't do this. I'll give you the championship pot. I'll give you everything. Just please don't take my bending.
Good God, I can't imagine what not being able to bend must be like. Wait. Yes, I can. Hold on a second. Why did I ever care about any of this shit? See, here's where I think Deco got it wrong. Bending isn't just some special ability or talent like being able to draw or write. It's something that gives you a physical power advantage over another person. It's more akin to being really strong or owning a gun. Except in the real world, where we have laws in place to prevent abuse of that power, sometimes, there's no such law that I'm aware of that's in Korra. I mean, you'd think Republic City at least would have some system in place to prevent benders from f***ing around. In fact, it would only take 3 simple things. First, create a registered benders list. That way, you know which citizens are benders, because otherwise you can't really distinguish them from non-benders. Well, until it's too late, of course. You could be having a discussion with some guy at a bar, and by the time you realize he's a short-tempered firebender, you just told him that you thought Doctor Who was overrated. Second, use your eyes! What's the point of these zeppelins if you're not gonna notice when 3 benders are threatening a non-bender's shop? You'd think it'd be pretty easy to spot someone bending an element. That's it. I know you can't be everywhere, so, just use eyewitnesses when you can. Third, and probably most importantly, when in doubt, use your bending. Remember when Toph was able to tell if someone was lying with their earthbending? You'd think that one of the prerequisites to being a metal-bending cop would be to function as your own personal polygraph. And you don't have to just use this on benders, you could use it on any criminal. Just go up to them, ask them if they did it. If they say no, then you'll know they're lying, and then you can arrest them. Duh! Avatar universe don't need no Miranda rights, bitch! Wait. How come they didn't use this ability when they asked Hiroshi Sato if he was working with the Equalists? Or when Tarlok said he was ambushed in the city council building? Or when they accused Amon of being a bender? Deco? Did you two forget that you could do this?